How you doing, everybody? This is Robert Rivera with Who's on First, the show. Mike, how you doing? Introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm good. I have the umpires bunkhouse from Cooperstown, and I have umpires there from Florida and California and all over the country. It was a great experience, and the book's doing well. And how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. As you can see, the background is that the Cooperstown fields back there behind
Yes, it
me.
is.
Okay, those are the fields you were umpiring on.
Yeah, there was 22 fields, and we umpired about 3 a day. And in between, I told everyone I had been a reporter in Cooperstown 40 years ago, and I told them I was going to write the book, and I got their trust, and they told me all kinds of stories. And umpires aren't known very well. Even in the major leagues, you can't tell who they are. So I really got them to open up and talked about what it's like to be an umpire, and each region of the country has different kinds of umpire styles, and altogether it was a great learning experience. And they all talk about integrity and trying to be better every single day, and that was a great thing.
Right. It's one of the things I always said about umpires. We always strive for that one thing that every single baseball player wants, and they want to pitch that perfect game, or they want to go 4 for 4, and we strive for that every single day. Unfortunately for umpires, we have to be right 100% of the times, right, Mike?
110.
Even when you're wrong, you're right. You're supposed to be right, right?
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about your book. What's it called?
It's called Umpire's Bunkhouse, and it has a life all its own. I was in Florida last weekend, and I did a game. I umpired a game, and all the people there had read my book. That's why the intensity was there. I'm an umpire myself. I did about 160 games last year. Every year I average about 150, and I'm going to start a new season tomorrow. It starts fresh, but you're only as good as you are the last game. And I was in the field umpiring on that Sunday down in St. Pete, and it was a 15-14 game. It was a men's league. It was intense, and it went 9 innings, and it was really, it was my first big breakout for this season. But it's still the same. It's a great, great thing to do to umpire. It's not for everybody, and that's why there's such a shortage of umpires around the country.
Yeah, there is. That's one of the shows that I did, The Vanishing Umpire, and it's little by little it's starting to see. I also say with the umpires, there's also a lot of leagues, a lot of travel ball is coming up. Back in the 10, 15 years ago, you didn't have the travel baseball that you have now, or these tournaments that are something else. Perfect Game has turned into a monster within itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going up to Cooperstown, and there was only 4. You're saying there's 22 fields now?
22 fields. They start out with 104 teams on Thursday, Friday, and they get down to 2 by the following Wednesday. So it's a really competitive tournament. Very expensive too, but it's a Cooperstown experience. It's you go to the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's you can see the mountains and the hills in the background. It's a beautiful, beautiful setting.
How many games did you do in that week?
Oh goodness, about 15. The first year I was there, it was 2018, and the first 3 batters that came up hit home runs, and then the game ended up 34-0. So you can see the level of expertise it's there. It was 34-0 in 4 innings. So there's a bunch of town teams there, but most of the teams are handpicked. All the players are about 6 feet tall, and they're very, very good.
So what age bracket is that? They're 6 feet tall. Don't tell
They're
me 12-year-olds.
12 and 13 years old.
All right, so let me ask you a question. You were umpire. Where did you guys stay?
Well, that's the whole point. One of the key points of this book. You don't stay in anything fancy, believe me. We had 12 umpires. There's about 75 umpires per week, and we have 5 dorms, and they're like army barracks. It's no air conditioning, no heat, little tiny mattresses. It was rough living. And the first night I was there, I was staying, and I was in between 2 guys who snored really bad.
Wow.
And it turns out Kevin Fields was one of my best friends. But that first night I had to leave the bunkhouse, and I had to sleep in my car because that's how bad the snore was.
Well, give me one of your best experiences while you were there on the field.
At the end of those games with 104 teams, I was selected for the finals of the game, and they play the finals in a little mini stadium. It's about 3,000 people, and it's a big crowd for that area. And it was real exciting playing that, and it was a real good time. You line up just like the World Series. They reproduce it really well. It's a private group there that puts on this tournament, and it's really well done.
How about something off the field, something that you probably never thought you'd see? You'd be like, you're wow, you're amazed.
Well, I was surprised, but I became part of it. Was almost every night you went out to Cooperstown when it was all done, and you've done 3 games and it's hot or it's cold and you're tired, but you get together with these guys and it's really funny because you get together around a table and they start talking, and one guy's from California and the other guy's from Chicago and the other guy's from Florida. There's all kinds of stuff they talk about, and it was funny. I had been working there and living there for 40 years ago, the time of Henry Aaron and Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams and all those guys when they were still alive at the Baseball Hall of Fame. And, they were fascinated by that. None of them had seen that. So I took them with me during the off hours to the Baseball Hall of Fame and to the Otesaga Hotel, which was a big, giant hotel there. And I had friends there at the Baseball Hall of Fame who guaranteed me, because I was a sports editor of the paper, guaranteed me access, and from Brooks Robinson, Joe DiMaggio, it was just amazing to be around these people. They didn't want to talk baseball. They want to talk about the fishing and the hunting and the girls and everything but baseball. It was wonderful.
Any good stories that came out of the fishing and hunting? I mean,
Oh, well, that's another story. It's the same kind of thing. Hunting and fishing stories are rampant in baseball world, but it's private, some of those conversations. They caught the really big ones, and
right.
they weren't so big, but it's the experience that counts, and that's what I write about. The experience. So one guy from rural Pennsylvania, he had 18 kids in his family, and I had to probe him. I was a reporter, so I was pretty good at that, and I had to get the truth out of him. And he finally admitted to me he was right. He had a big family, but he never saw his father very much. And when he was 9 years old, his father said, "Come sit on my lap. I hear you're a pretty good ball player, and I'm going to come and see you tomorrow for the first time." He was 9 years old. His father had never seen him play, and
Mm.
he went to bed that night upstairs, and he woke up about midnight. One of his brothers woke him up and said, "Wake up, Nate. Your dad's downstairs. He just died." And it was
Wow.
heartbreaking, but just an unbelievable story. And his father never saw him play. But since then, this man is about 60 years old now. He just loves baseball, and he's there all summer. For 13 weeks, he stays in that bunkhouse, and he's a great man. And that's true of most of the people there at the camp. It's a really treasured opportunity to give back to baseball, and it's really good.
Okay. So where was your love of baseball come from? Where'd you get that? Who showed you the game?
Oh boy, it was 1967 was a key date. My father was the coach, Richard E. Brown. He's still alive. He's 92, in Bellows Falls, Vermont, and we won the championship. And I got the call to pitch the last game of the year, and I pitched a no hitter, and we won 2-0. That's a moment that I've always that's the gold standard that I like. And last year at a tournament here in Ohio, a guy I was behind the plate. He pitched a 1-0 no hitter, and he struck out 17 batters. And I joked. I said I either called a really good game or I called a horrible game. Yeah.
As an umpire, sometimes in situations, sometimes in games, you become attached to a moment, and
Mhm.
it's a moment for you. It's not really a moment for anybody. Any special moment, and I'm not talking about just Cooperstown. Any special moment like that you have, and all your years of umpiring.
Oh, there's so many of them. One play in particular was in 1966. I was 11 years old, and we had a very good Rotary Club, that same Little League team that won the championship the following year. And the last play of the game with our team, with a game tied, that we were behind by one. And this is really amazing. 1967, by any standards, is a long time ago, right? So the play was, it was a single to center field, and Jimmy Coffey, who was a really fast runner, came flying around third base, and he was going to score. And Leslie White was a catcher, who was, since then I've become always good friends with him. And the throw came in, and it was a close play, real close play. And Freddie Shaughnessy was the umpire, and he called him out. And to this day, in American Legion and the ball fields and the beer halls and whatever, they still talk about Freddie Shaughnessy blowing that call. And that probably was the reason I became an umpire.
The reason I got into umpiring was because of my dad, and
Mhm.
I felt bad for him. He'd be the only one out there, and you know what, Dad, I'll go do the bases for you. And then it got to the point where he turned around and he says, you know what, I think you could do the plate. I think you do the dish for me. I'm a little tired, and I'm like, all right,
Mhm.
I'll do the dish. And I was a catcher, so it kind of like came natural to me to wear the equipment and stuff like that. This ain't too bad for a weekend gig. Wasn't too bad for a
Yeah.
16, 17-year-old kid. Not too bad. You umpire, 5 games, you make $100.
Well, the money is a big thing. This has been controversial around the country, but particularly in central Ohio near Columbus, where I live. It's been very controversial because we only make $55, and it's been that way for years. If I moved to Florida, I would make $95. In New
Yeah.
York, where I used to live, I'd make 130. In
Mm-hmm.
Vermont, a little tiny state, 85.
Yeah.
So there's a dramatic gap. Now, I'm pleased to tell you that some negotiations have taken place, and most of the leagues now are going to pay $69. So that's
Okay.
somewhat of an increase of that's a good increase for us. But it's,
Mm-hmm.
you don't umpire for the money. And we've always said that.
A lot of people don't understand, and it's not about the money. For me as an umpire, I went to pro school. Okay. You
Mhm.
get the same umpire whether I'm doing a T-ball game
Yeah,
or whether I'm doing a showcase 18U game.
yeah,
The same umpire, shiny shoes, creased pants,
absolutely.
baseball bag, mask. I'm 100%. And these masks that are out now, I mean, there's something else. They're not cheap. The Force 3 chest guard, it's got Kevlar in it. You got some of the
Hmm.
West vests. They're not cheap. Some people they might get 5 or 6 years out of a vest, but some people every year they'll buy new equipment, new shoes, new pants. I mean, you add that money up, gas, toll, time.
Yep,
I mean, sometimes you're not really making a buck.
yep.
So, I mean, it's more of a love of the game when we say the umpires. And I mean, these fields, I've seen it grow and grow and grow. Now, I don't know if you ever know, but Iowa is looking at doing something like this in like the Cooperstown to do tournaments at the Field of Dreams.
Hmm.
Have you heard about that?
Oh yeah, yes I have. That would be great.
Go head out into the corn and disappear. Now, I did see a picture of your dad, and he was selling your books. So, I
Yep.
mean, is your dad one of your biggest cheerleaders?
Well, that was down in Dunedin before a Toronto Blue Jays game last year. That was fun. My dad's still kicking, just barely. I dedicated this book to him. When you start out in baseball in the 60s and he was your coach, that was a good start. I forgot to tell you, I bought one of those helmets with the screws in it because I had 2 concussions last year,
Okay,
and
the Force 3.
hopefully that's going to solve it this year.
Oh yeah, it's remarkable numbers. Jason Klein was one of my guests. He's a friend of mine, and he's the owner CEO of the Force 3. He's still pulling out stats that are just leaving people just dumbfounded. I believe there was one major league team that their whole minor league club had to wear that mask,
Hmm.
and they had over, I think it was 1,200 strikes, over 1,000 strikes on that mask, zero concussions. You know,
Beautiful.
what is the one thing that you've seen? I mean, you play ball from since the 60s and umpired all
Hmm.
this time. What is the one thing that you're seeing from these kids?
Well, there's two different stories going on. Everybody's pretty much into the major league thing, and we're not the major leagues. Little league, high school ball, even college ball is not the major leagues. The money isn't there. So the idea of robot umpires, the idea of all these changes, we're not going to see that in high school baseball for a long time, if ever. I mean,
Mhm.
think about it. We can barely get to $60 from our high schools for a game. So we're not
Right.
going to see that. But the one thing that's been consistent has been the fundamentals of baseball, and that's why it's so classic and good. I'm a modern guy. You're a modern guy. We have a website. We have, all this stuff you never heard of 10 years ago, and but baseball is fair or it's foul. It's a strike or it's a ball. It's a basic thing that really hasn't changed in 100 years,
Mhm.
and I like that a lot. And I had a catcher last year in a real close game. Guy hit a line shot down the left field line, and I was behind the plate. And before I could say anything, he's yelling, "That's a fair ball! That's a fair ball!" Just verbally, what you're not supposed to do. And you're not supposed to say if it's a fair ball, you don't say fair ball, but you do say foul ball. So
Right.
I had to correct him. That's a fair ball, pointed in. And uh, so you have those kind of situations, but that's not recorded. But it's the way baseball has been for 100 years, 150 years, and that's what I like it so much. And that catcher who he made that mistake and he apologized to me afterwards, but he had a single in the seventh inning to win it. So it was beautiful. And
Yeah.
I do 150, 160 games, but I remember that play. I remember that play like it was yesterday.
It's funny. We were watching the League of Their Own
Yep.
just 2 days ago, and my father-in-law had never seen it. And we're watching it, and at one point they hit a shot, and the umpire screams fair ball, and I said,
Yep.
"Is he crazy? What's he doing?"
Yep.
I said, "Oh no!" And my wife goes, "Oh my God, you found another error." I said, I did." But you know what? Sometimes an umpire's job is to teach them the game, teach them the rules, and
Yeah.
it's we enforce it. And I mean, I had a pitcher one time, and I felt so bad. They were just getting wrecked, and they were just trying to get through the third inning. And of course, the mercy rule doesn't kick in until the fourth inning, and they put an outfielder in there. They had no more pitchers, and he comes up and he does this, and then he looks, and then he takes his hand out, adjusts his hat, puts it right here,
Scratch his nose or something.
and then he's getting, and I went, because bases are loaded. I'm like, I'm gonna balk in another run. What are we doing? Well, the
Oh,
kid comes up and he hits a ground ball, ends the inning, and as he walking away, I say, hey, pitch, hey, pitch, hey, pitch, hey, pitch, hey, pitch, and the coach goes, I got him, Blue, and I said, okay, all right, you got him, yeah. I said, okay, all right, man, I was like, you feel so bad, and sometimes as umpires, we have to worry about not only the letter of the law but the spirit of the law. And unfortunately, sometimes when you lay down those rules, you wind up teaching. And even in the major leagues, we were just talking about the major league catcher covered the ball with his mask. When they called it, he was like, what are you guys talking about? What are you talking about? And it was just like detached equipment violation. He was just, you see him with the umpire. He's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh my goodness, I remember that in school. I
yeah.
remember when they put that into us,
Yeah.
you know?
Three things. Study the book. You can't know all the rules, but you can know most of them. Two, you've got to be a public relations person, which I was before I retired, and you got to be aware of that. And so a coach that's yelling at the umpire for balls and strikes, he can't see that possibly, but you give him a warning, and then you throw him out. It's an observe. You give him a warning, and then you throw him out. It's that simple. And it comes down to basic math. And the third thing is you got to be in shape. Okay, and by be in shape, I think the days of a big pot-bellied umpire are over. I weigh 5 pounds more than I did when I was in high school, so I can really run. And I went
Mhm.
to a college camp, umpiring camp in Indianapolis last summer, and it was fascinating. From the very beginning, they changed the way I stood, and I was a punch man, and they
Mhm.
said point
Point.
because it's a big stadium. Everybody wants to see it. You want to be very clear, straight like that. So those three things
It's
would
funny. I'm not a fan of the point. I'm always a
I mean,
hammer guy.
me
I'm always
neither.
a I'm always a hammer guy.
Yeah,
Always.
but they said nobody can see that except for the pitcher and the catcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, this book was about friendships. It's showing the Cooperstown experience. It's telling them about some good stories, some good life lessons. So if I want to pick up this book, where would I go?
You can get it anywhere on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. That my publisher's in Outskirts Press of Colorado, so it's available pretty much any place. And if your
Okay.
bookstore doesn't have it, you can ask them to order it for you.
$14.95. Show us the book again. It's called The Umpire's Bunkhouse.
Yeah. Go to a bookstore, go to Barnes and Noble, and call up Michael Marshall Brown, and you can get this book. And that's the best way.
Okay. All righty. Well, I do have a joke for you. There was a turtle, a sloth, and a snail, and they were arguing about who's the best baseball player. And the tortoise says, "I'll play you any day." And the snail says, "Okay, why don't we play now?" He goes, "But we need an umpire." And they're looking around, they look up in the tree, there's a sloth. And they tell the sloth, "Hey, would you umpire for us?" And he goes, "Okay." Well, about 3 hours later, he comes out of the tree and the snail pitches the ball. And it's a slow pitch. And the tortoise hits it. And then he starts running. Well, it takes him about 2 or 3 hours to get the first. Takes him another 2 or 3 hours to get the second. Takes him another 2 or 3 hours to get the third. And he's rounding third base. And he begins his slide. And the sloth comes out and goes, "Foul."
That's good.
Yeah. I told that to a couple of buddies of mine. They were like, "That's what I said." It has happened, man. I've hit the kids hit a shot, and I'm sitting there foul ball, and they're running. They're running, especially the little guys, the 10-year-old. They're off to the races, and you're sitting there going, "No, foul ball. It's a guys, foul ball, foul ball." I'm like, "You need to go back to first. You need to go back to second, and you need to go back to bat," because it was fun. So anyway, all right, Mike. Well, I appreciate it. Tell your dad I said hi for me. My dad is also, he's getting up in age, and sometimes he tells me the same baseball stories over and over again. And we don't appreciate it when we're 16. Tell me that story again, Dad, when you moved to second baseman. Yeah.
If you remember that, my father, Richard E. Brown, he's from Dunedin, and you'll probably meet him if you go to Dunedin.
Okay.
And ask him about Freddie Shaughnessy, that play at the plate in 1967. He can tell you it verbatim.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. Thanks for being on. I appreciate you. Once again, guys, pick up his book. It's some good reading out there. It's some good experience, especially for you young umpires. You see exactly what the older guys went through, and sometimes you might get a little experience. You never know. All right. Thank you, Mike.
Hey, thank you very much.
All right. Well, this is Robert Rivera with Who's On First. And as we always say, guys, keep swinging.
If you like the show, please do me a favor. Subscribe. Right. You see it? It's right there. Subscribe, share, like, and don't forget, put that bell on. It'll ding you when I put something else on, all right?